Jake Morrison had been waiting for this day for months. After working on the spaceship USS Horizon for 18 long months, he finally got 2 weeks off. He was tired of looking at metal walls and breathing recycled air. All he wanted was to feel real sunlight on his skin and swim in actual water. The place he chose was called Solaris Prime. It was a beautiful planet covered mostly by oceans. The best part was that it had just opened its beaches to tourists from different planets. Jake had heard the beaches were amazing, with soft white sand and crystal clear water. Jake grew up in California near the ocean. As a kid, he spent every summer at the beach. He loved surfing, swimming, and just lying in the sun. His skin was naturally dark, the kind that usually handled sun pretty well. He never worried much about sunburn because he rarely got one. The trip to Solaris Prime took 3 days on a passenger ship. Jake spent most of the time sleeping and reading books. He had not relaxed like this in years. When the ship finally landed, Jake could hardly contain his excitement. The resort was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was built to welcome visitors from many different planets. The buildings were made of some kind of crystal that seemed to glow softly. There were pools filled with different gases for aliens who could not breathe regular air. Some areas had extra gravity for heavy aliens. Other areas had no gravity at all. Jake checked into his room and immediately put on his swimming shorts. The beach was just a short walk from his room. When he stepped onto the sand, he felt all his stress melt away. The sand was warm and soft. The water was the perfect temperature. The sun felt wonderful on his skin. He spent the first day doing nothing but swimming and lying on a beach chair. There were other humans at the resort, but also many aliens. Some looked like tall blue people with see-through skin. Others looked like walking rocks. There were even some that looked like living crystals that sparkled in the sunlight. Jake did not pay much attention to the other guests. He was too busy enjoying himself. He swam in the ocean for hours. The water was so clear he could see fish swimming far below. He built sandcastles like he used to do as a child. He read a book while lying in the sun. On the second day, Jake noticed his skin getting a little red. This was normal for him. He always got a little pink before developing. A nice tan. He put on some sunscreen and kept enjoying the beach. The sun felt different here than on Earth, but he figured all suns were a little different. By the third day, Jake was definitely getting burned. His skin was redder than usual, but he had experienced worse sunburns before. He remembered getting badly burned during a camping trip when he was 20. This felt similar, maybe a little worse. He decided to take it easy and spent more time in the shade. The resort had many shaded areas with comfortable chairs and cool drinks. Jake found a nice spot under a large umbrella and ordered something called a Zephyrian fruit smoothie. It was bright green and tasted like a mix of pineapple and mint. He spent the afternoon reading and napping. What Jake did not know was that the resort had very advanced monitoring systems. These systems were designed to keep all the different alien guests safe. The blue aliens, called Zephyrians, had built most of the technology. They were very smart and very careful about safety. The Zephyrians came from a planet with a very weak sun. Their skin was so thin you could see through it. Even a little bit of radiation could hurt them badly. So they built sensors everywhere to watch for dangerous levels of radiation. As Jake relaxed under his umbrella, the sensors were watching him. His skin was hot and red. He was giving off more heat than normal. To the sensitive alien equipment, this looked like a radiation emergency. The system started sending automatic warnings. Red lights began flashing in the resort's control room. Computer voices announced radiation alert in Beach Sector 7. The resort's safety protocols kicked in automatically. Jake had no idea any of this was happening. He was enjoying his smoothie and thinking about ordering fish tacos for dinner. He felt a little sick to his stomach. but he thought it was just from too much sun and rich food. He had felt this way before, during bad SUNBURNS, the resort manager. A nervous Zephyrian named Veltar received the alerts at his office. He looked at the readings and felt his blue skin go pale. According to the sensors, a human guest was showing signs of severe radiation poisoning. This was exactly the kind of emergency they had trained for. Veltar immediately contacted the local Space Defense Force. "We have a code red radiation event," he reported. "Human guest showing critical exposure levels. Request immediate medical assistance." The message was sent automatically to every emergency station in the sector. Within minutes, alarms were going off on military bases and medical ships throughout the region. A human in radiation distress was serious business that could affect relations between different planets. Jake finished his smoothie and decided to go back to his room for a nap. He still felt a little queasy, but a good rest usually helped with sunburn symptoms. As he walked through the resort lobby, he noticed some of the alien staff looking at him strangely. He waved and smiled, thinking they were just being friendly. In his room, Jake took a cool shower and put on some aloe vera gel he had brought from Earth. The gel felt good on his burned skin. He lay down on the bed and was asleep within minutes. While Jake slept peacefully, emergency teams across the sector were preparing for the worst radiation disaster in recent memory. Admiral Lisa Kane was drinking her morning coffee when the emergency alert flashed on her screen. She almost dropped her cup when she read the message. A human guest at a civilian resort was showing signs of severe radiation poisoning. This was the kind of incident that could destroy relationships between humans and aliens. The Kepler sector had only recently allowed humans to visit and live there. 3 major alien races called this area of space their home. They had not been sure about letting humans in. Many aliens still did not trust humans completely. One bad incident could change everything. Lisa immediately called Captain Roy Chun, who commanded the medical ship Mercy's Hand. "Roy, we have a situation at Solaris Prime. Drop everything and get there now. Take your best medical team." Captain Chun was a calm man who had handled many emergencies. But even he felt worried when he heard the details. "Admiral, are we talking about a real radiation leak or just one person affected? The reports say 1 human, but the local sensors are going crazy. We need to assume the worst until we know more. Take Dr. Amanda Foster with you. She knows more about radiation medicine than anyone in the sector." Dr. Foster was in her lab when the call came. She was a tall woman with short brown hair who had spent her career studying how radiation affects different species. She had seen terrible radiation accidents before, and she knew how bad they could be. "Captain, I'll be ready in 10 minutes, she said. "What do we know about the exposure?" "Not much. The resort's automated systems detected critical levels. The victim is a human male, mid-30s, showing classic symptoms of acute radiation syndrome." Meanwhile, back at the resort, Jake was waking up from his nap feeling worse than before. His skin was bright red and felt like it was on fire. His stomach was upset and he had a headache. He looked in the mirror and winced. This was definitely the worst sunburn he had ever had. Jake decided to visit the resort's medical center. He had been there once before when he cut his foot on a shell. The medical center was run by Dr. Veltar, a Zephyrian who seemed very smart and caring. When Jake walked into the medical center, Dr. Veltar took one look at him and his eyes went wide. The human skin was bright red and hot to the touch. He was showing every symptom of radiation poisoning that Dr. Veltar had studied in medical school. "Please sit down immediately," Dr. Veltar said in his soft, musical voice. "How long have you been feeling these symptoms?" Jake sat down on the examination table. "Well, I've been getting sunburned for about 3 days. It's worse than usual, but I've had bad sunburns before. Dr. Veltar did not understand. The readings from his medical scanner showed dangerous levels of radiation exposure. This human should be in critical condition, possibly dying. Yet he was walking around and talking normally. I need to run more tests, Dr. Veltar said. Please wait here. Do not leave this room. Dr. Veltar immediately contacted the resort manager. We need to quarantine the human guest immediately. He is showing advanced radiation poisoning. We must also check everyone he has been in contact with. The resort's emergency systems activated. Automated announcements began playing in different languages. Attention all guests. Please report to your nearest information station for a routine health screening. This is not a drill. The other human guests were confused and worried. They had been having a great vacation, and suddenly they were being asked to go to medical stations. Word spread quickly through the resort that there had been some kind of radiation accident. The alien guests reacted even more strongly. The rock-like aliens, called the Granite People, had a terrible fear of radiation. Their home planet had been damaged by nuclear wars long ago. When they heard about a radiation emergency, many of them started packing to leave immediately. Crystal aliens, known as the Shard Collective, processed information differently than other species. When they heard about the radiation alert, their network minds began sharing the fear and concern. Soon, all the Shard Collective guests were vibrating with anxiety. Captain Chun arrived at Solaris Prime 12 hours after the first alert. His medical ship landed at the resort's emergency pad. Teams of medical personnel in full radiation protection suits rushed out of the ship. The sight of people in hazmat suits made everyone at the resort panic. Jake was still in the medical center when the emergency team arrived. He was feeling better after Dr. Veltar had given him some pain medication and anti-nausea drugs. But when he saw people in radiation suits walking toward him, he started to get scared. What's going on? Jake asked Dr. Veltar. Why are they wearing those suits? Before Dr. Veltar could answer, Captain Chung and Dr. Foster entered the room. Their voices sounded strange, coming through the suit's speakers. Commander Morrison, I'm Captain Chun. This is Dr. Foster. We're here to help you. Can you tell us exactly what happened to you? Jake was now genuinely frightened. I just got a sunburn. I was lying on the beach for 3 days. It's worse than nice. Usual, but it's just a sunburn. Why are you wearing radiation suits? Dr. Foster began running her own tests while Jake talked. She used advanced human medical equipment that was more sophisticated than what the resort had. As she studied the readings, she began to suspect something was wrong with the diagnosis. Jake, have you been anywhere else besides the beach? Any industrial areas? Any place where there might be radioactive materials? No, just the beach and my room and the restaurant. I've been on vacation. I haven't been anywhere dangerous. Dr. Foster looked at Captain Chun. Her readings were showing elevated radiation levels, but not the kind that came from radiation poisoning. The signature was all wrong. It looked more like solar radiation exposure. Captain, I need to run more tests. Something doesn't add up here. But by now, the crisis had grown beyond just Jake's medical condition. The resort was in chaos. Alien guests were demanding to be evacuated. The local news services had picked up the story. Headlines across the sector were reporting human radiation disaster at luxury resort. The Granite People's government issued a statement saying they were deeply concerned about human safety protocols. The Shard Collective began discussing whether humans should be banned from their space stations. The Zephyrians were calling for a complete investigation. Jake found himself at the center of a growing international incident. All because he had gotten a really bad sunburn while trying to enjoy his vacation. Dr. Foster, he said quietly, I think there's been a big mistake. Dr. Foster stared at her test results and felt her stomach drop. The readings clearly showed that Jake had a severe sunburn, not radiation poisoning. But the political situation had already spiraled out of control. Military ships were on their way. 3 alien governments were demanding answers. If she simply announced this was all a mistake, it could look like humans were trying to cover up a serious accident. Jake sat in the isolation room, feeling more embarrassed than sick. His sunburn was actually getting better thanks to the advanced medical treatments Dr. Foster had given him. The pain was gone and the redness was fading. But he was still locked in a room with people in radiation suits, treating him like he was dangerous. Dr. Foster, I keep telling everyone this is just a sunburn. I grew up in California. I know what a sunburn feels like. This isn't some kind of radiation accident. Dr. Foster nodded. She believed him completely. The problem was convincing everyone else. Jake, you're right, but we have a bigger problem now. This incident has triggered responses from 3 different alien governments. If we just say it was a false alarm, some people might think we're lying to protect human interests. Captain Chun was dealing with the political crisis. Admiral Kane had ordered a full investigation. Representatives from the Granite People, the Shard Collective, and the Zephyrians were all demanding detailed reports. The human colonial government was also involved, worried about the damage to human reputation in the sector. The resort was in complete chaos. Most of the alien guests had left. The remaining humans were confused and scared. Resort staff were overwhelmed trying to answer questions they did not understand. The beautiful vacation planet had turned into a disaster zone. Dr. Foster decided she needed to understand exactly what had happened. She began a careful investigation of the entire incident. She studied the resort's monitoring systems, analyzed the light from Solaris Prime's sun, and compared human biology with the 3 alien species. What she discovered was both fascinating and embarrassing. The whole crisis had been caused by a series of misunderstandings based on biological differences. The Zephyrians had evolved on a planet with a very weak sun. Their skin was so thin and delicate that even small amounts of radiation could kill them. Their monitoring systems were designed to detect threat levels that would be dangerous to them. But those same levels were far below what humans considered harmful. To a Zephyrian, Jake's sunburn looked exactly like fatal radiation poisoning. The elevated body temperature, the red skin, the nausea, all of these were signs that a Zephyrian was about to die from radiation exposure. The Granite people had their own problems with radiation. Their home planet had been devastated by nuclear wars thousands of years ago. Even though they were now resistant to radiation, they had deep cultural fears about it. Any mention of radiation caused panic among their people. The Shard Collective was different again. They were made of living crystal that processed information in networks. When one of them felt fear or concern, it spread to all the others. Small worries became big problems very quickly as the fear multiplied through their shared consciousness. Dr. Foster realized that Jake's simple sunburn had created a perfect storm of misunderstanding. The Zephyrians had detected what they thought was a medical emergency. The Granite people had panicked about radiation danger. The Shard Collective had amplified everyone's fears. And the automatic emergency systems had called in the military. As Dr. Foster worked on her report, she began to see an opportunity. This embarrassing incident had revealed important gaps in understanding between the species. None of them really understood how the others lived and thought and responded to problems. Jake was finally released from isolation after 5 days. His sunburn was almost completely healed. He had spent the time reading books and watching movies on the room's entertainment system. When Dr. Foster came to tell him he could leave, he was relieved, but also curious. So, Dr. Foster, what's the final diagnosis? Did my sunburn really almost cause an interstellar war? Dr. Foster laughed. Jake, your sunburn revealed something important. We've been sharing this sector of space for years, but we don't really understand each other. The Zephyrians thought you were dying because their people would be dying with those symptoms. The Granite people thought there was a radiation disaster because that's their worst fear. The Shard Collective made everything worse because they share emotions. Jake nodded thoughtfully. So everyone was trying to help, but they were all thinking about it from their own point of view. Exactly. And that's actually a good thing. It means everyone cares about safety and wants to protect each other. We just need to learn how to do it better. Dr. Foster had been thinking about this problem for days. She had an idea that might turn this embarrassing incident into something positive. Jake, how would you feel about helping me fix this problem? What do you mean? I want to propose a new program to help all the species understand each other better. Medical knowledge, cultural awareness, better emergency procedures. Your sunburn might have started a crisis, but it also showed us what we need to work on. Jake grinned. You mean I could be famous for something other than having the most dangerous sunburn in galactic history? That's exactly what I mean. The next day, Dr. Foster presented her findings to Captain Sean and Admiral Kane. Her report was detailed and thorough. She explained the biological differences between species, the cultural factors that had influenced responses, and the technical problems with the monitoring systems. More importantly, she proposed a solution. An interspecies medical and cultural exchange program that would bring together scientists and doctors from all 4 species. They would create better emergency procedures, share medical knowledge, and help everyone understand each other's needs and fears. Admiral Kane was impressed. Dr. Foster, this is exactly the kind of forward-thinking approach we need. I'm recommending you to head this new program. Jake found himself at the center of the proposal. His experience had started the whole crisis, but it had also revealed the solution. He would be asked to speak at the upcoming Sector Council meeting, where representatives from all 4 species would decide how to move forward. As he prepared for the biggest speech of his life, Jake realized that his simple vacation had accidentally become the most important diplomatic mission in recent history. Sometimes the biggest changes came from the smallest incidents. Admiral Kane called for an emergency meeting of the Kepler Sector Council. This was a big deal. The council only met when something very important needed to be discussed. Representatives from all 4 species would gather at Harmony Point, a space station that floated at the center of the sector. Harmony Point was beautiful. It had been built by all 4 species working together. The Zephyrians had designed the flowing curved sections. The Granite people had created the strong foundation structures. The Shard Collective had added the crystal communication arrays. Humans had contributed the life support systems and common areas. Dr. Foster spent days preparing her presentation. She had charts showing the biological differences between species. She had recordings of the emergency alerts. She had medical data proving that Jake's sunburn was completely normal for a human, but would be fatal for a Zephyrian. Jake was nervous about speaking to such an important group. He had never been involved in politics or diplomacy. He was just a ship captain who had gotten a bad sunburn on vacation. But Dr. Foster convinced him that his voice was important. Jake, you're the one who experienced all of this. You can explain what it felt like to be at the center of a crisis that you didn't understand. That's something the representatives need to hear. The meeting day arrived. The council chamber was impressive. It was a large circular room with sections designed for each species. The Zephyrians had pools of special water they could float in. The Granite people had heated stone platforms. The Shard Collective had crystalline resonance chambers. Humans had regular chairs and tables. Ambassador Zilkith represented the Zephyrians. He was tall and graceful, with skin so clear you could see the blue fluid that flowed through his body instead of blood. His people valued precision and accuracy above everything else. He looked embarrassed as he took his place. Elder Granite, who speaks for many, represented the Granite people. He was massive, looking like a living mountain made of dark stone. His people were ancient and wise, but they carried deep scars from their planet's nuclear wars. He moved slowly, but with great dignity. The Shard Collective's representative was harder to understand. It looked like a cloud of floating crystal pieces that somehow formed a single being. The crystals moved in patterns that created meaning. They could communicate in ways that other species found difficult to follow. Admiral Kane opened the meeting. We're here to discuss the recent incident at Solaris Prime. What started as a medical emergency has revealed important gaps in our understanding of each other. Dr. Foster will present her findings. Dr. Foster stood and began her presentation. She explained human biology and how humans reacted to sun exposure. She showed how the Zephyrian monitoring systems worked and why they had detected Jake's sunburn as a radiation emergency. She described the cultural fears that had made the Granite people panic and the network effects that had amplified the Shard Collective's response. The representatives listened carefully. As Dr. Foster spoke, they began to understand how the crisis had developed. Each species had acted reasonably based on their own biology and culture. The problem was that they did not understand each other well enough. Ambassador Zilkith was the first to speak. We deeply regret the confusion our safety systems created. We were trying to protect all guests at the resort, but our systems were designed only for our own people. We did not consider how other species might react differently to radiation. Elder Granite, who speaks for many's deep voice, filled the chamber. The fear scent of radiation death still haunts our people's dreams. We acted from old terror, not new wisdom. We should have asked questions before assuming the worst. The Shard Collective's response came as a pattern of chiming tones. The translation system converted it to words. Our network amplified the fear signal beyond optimal parameters. We acknowledge errors in our collective processing. Individual thoughts became group panic. Admiral Kane saw an opportunity. This incident has shown us something important. We're 4 different species trying to live together in the same space, but we don't really understand each other. Maybe it's time to change that. She presented Dr. Foster's proposal for the Interspecies Medical and Cultural Exchange Program. Scientists and doctors from all 4 species would work together. They would create databases of medical information for each species. They would develop better emergency procedures. They would help everyone understand each other's needs and fears. The representatives were interested, but they wanted to hear from Jake himself. Admiral Kane called him forward. Jake had never felt so nervous in his life. He was standing in front of the most important people from 4 different worlds. His simple sunburn had brought them all together. He took a deep breath and began to speak. Honored representatives, I'm just a ship captain who got a really bad sunburn on vacation. I never meant to cause any trouble, but I've learned something important from this experience. He paused, looking at each representative. Every one of you cared about my safety. Dr. Veltar was worried about my health. The Granite people were concerned about dangerous radiation. The Shard Collective wanted to prevent harm to everyone. Even when you were wrong about what was happening, you were right about wanting to help. Jake's voice grew stronger. Yes, we made mistakes. Yes, we overreacted. But we overreacted because we care about each other. That tells me we're already more united than we realized. We just need to learn how to show we care in ways that make sense to everyone. The response was immediate and positive. Ambassador. Zilkith's skin patterns flickered in colors that meant approval. Elder Granite, who speaks for many's, rumbling indicated satisfaction. The Shard Collective's crystals chimed in harmony, within hours. The council had approved funding for the new exchange program. Dr. Foster was appointed as the first human director of interspecies medical relations. The resort on Solaris Prime would be the first place to test the new procedures. But the most important change was in how the species felt about each other. The crisis had forced them to really look at their differences and similarities. They had discovered that they all wanted the same thing: safety and happiness for everyone in the sector. Ambassador Zil Keith approached Jake after the meeting. "Commander Morrison, your Sunburn has taught us more about cooperation than years of formal meetings. We would like to invite you to visit our home world when you have time." Elder Granite, who speaks for many, also came forward. "Human Jake, your story will be told to our young ones. They will learn that understanding is stronger than fear." The Shard Collective's message was translated as, "Jake pattern now incorporated into our collective memory. Your experience becomes part of our shared wisdom." As Jake left the council chamber, he realized that his embarrassing vacation had become something much more important. A simple sunburn had started a new era of cooperation between different species. Sometimes the biggest changes came from the smallest, most unexpected events. 6 months after the famous Sunburn incident, Jake returned to Solaris Prime for his next vacation. He was amazed by how much the resort had changed. The place looked the same, but everything worked differently now. The medical center had been expanded and now employed staff from all 4 species. Dr. Veltar was still there, but now he worked alongside Dr. Foster and doctors from the Granite People and Shard Collective. They had learned to understand each other's medical knowledge and could treat patients from any species. The monitoring systems had been completely redesigned. Instead of just detecting problems, they now identified what species was involved and adjusted their responses accordingly. If a human got sunburned, the system would recommend shade and cooling gel, not call for emergency evacuation. Jake checked into the same room he had stayed in before. The staff recognized him immediately. Some seemed excited to meet the famous human whose sunburn had changed everything. Others just smiled and treated him like any other guest. Dr. Foster had set up a permanent research station at the resort. Teams of scientists from all 4 species worked together to study how different beings could live safely in the same environments. Her first report about the Sunburn incident had become required reading at schools throughout the sector. Jake found her working in the research lab on his first day back. She was collaborating with a young Zephyrian scientist named Kyleth, helping him understand how human skin reacted to different types of radiation. "Jake, welcome back," Dr. Foster said. "How does it feel to return to the scene of your famous sunburn?" Jake laughed. "It's strange. I keep expecting alarms to go off every time I walk outside. But I have to admit, I'm curious to see how the new systems work." "Well, you'll be happy to know that we've had hundreds of humans visit since the incident, and no one has triggered a single false alarm. The new protocols are working perfectly." Jake decided to test the system by doing exactly what he had done before. He went to the same beach, lay on the same type of chair, and spent the day in the sun. But this time, he was much more careful with sunscreen. The experience was completely different. When his skin started to get pink, a gentle voice from the beach monitoring system suggested he move to shade. When he felt thirsty, the system recommended drinks that would help prevent dehydration. When he started to feel warm, it offered cooling towels. Other guests noticed him and came over to talk. A human family from the outer colonies thanked him for making the resort safer for everyone. A group of young Zephyrians asked to take pictures with the famous sunburned human. Even some Granite people nodded respectfully when they saw him. The most interesting conversation happened with a Shard Collective being named Crystal Song of Understanding. The crystal entity had been at the resort during the original incident and remembered the fear that had swept through their collective network. "Jake Pattern," the being said in its chiming voice, "your experience taught us about the danger of amplifying fear without understanding. We have learned to pause and analyze before sharing strong emotions through our network." Jake was touched by how much everyone had learned and grown. "I'm glad something good came out of my mistake. I should have been more careful with the sun." "No," Crystal Song of Understanding replied. "Your mistake revealed our mistakes. Sometimes the most important lessons come from unexpected sources." On his third day, Jake was approached by Kyleth, the young Zephyrian scientist. The alien looked excited and nervous at the same time. "Commander Morrison, I have been studying your incident for months. May I ask you something?" "Of course." "What do you want to know?" "When you realized that your sunburn had caused such a big crisis, how did you feel? Were you angry or embarrassed?" Jake thought about it. "I was definitely embarrassed. I felt foolish for not being more careful, but I wasn't angry. Everyone was trying to help me, even when they didn't understand what was really wrong. How could I be angry about that?" Kyleth's skin patterns showed deep interest. "That is what I find most remarkable about humans. You turned a negative experience into a positive outcome. Among my people, such an embarrassing mistake might cause someone to withdraw from social contact for years. Well, I thought about hiding from the whole thing. But Dr. Foster convinced me that my experience could help others. Sometimes the best way to deal with an embarrassing situation is to face it directly and see what you can learn from it." Jake's reputation had spread throughout the sector. The story of the human who burned like a star had become a popular tale told to children of all species. It was used to teach lessons about understanding, cooperation, and the importance of asking questions instead of making assumptions. The resort's gift shop now sold T-shirts with the slogan, "I survived the Great Sunburn Crisis of 2387, printed in 4 different languages. Jake bought several for his crew members, knowing they would tease him about it for years to come. On his last day, Jake visited the small memorial that had been erected near the beach where it all began. The plaque read, "Site of the Great Sunburn Incident, where understanding began with a simple mistake." Below that, in smaller text, it said, "Dedicated to the principle that our differences make us stronger when we take the time to understand each other." As Jake prepared to leave, he received a message from Admiral Kane. "Jake, I hope you enjoyed your vacation. Your new assignment is waiting for you. You've been selected to lead the first Interspecies Cooperation Task Force. Your experience with unconventional diplomacy makes you perfect for the job." Jake smiled as he read the message. His next assignment would be far more interesting than regular patrol duty. He would be working with beings from all 4 species, helping them understand each other better and preventing future misunderstandings. The shuttle ride back to USS Horizon gave Jake time to think about how much his life had changed. A simple vacation had accidentally made him one of the most famous humans in the sector. His sunburn had become a symbol of how different species could work together to solve problems. As he looked out at the stars, Jake realized that his embarrassing sunburn had taught him something important about exploration and discovery. Sometimes the most valuable discoveries came not from seeking out new worlds, but from learning to understand the beings who already lived in them. The resort on Solaris Prime continued to welcome guests from across the sector. The beaches were always full of different species enjoying the sun safely, thanks to the new understanding that had emerged from one human's unfortunate sunburn. Jake's story became part of the official history of the Kepler sector. Future generations would learn about the Great Sunburn Incident and how it led to better cooperation between species. They would understand that sometimes the most important diplomatic breakthroughs come from the most unexpected and embarrassing sources. And somewhere in the sector, whenever someone from any species got a minor injury or made a small mistake that seemed like a big problem, others would remember Jake's story and say, well, at least it's not as bad as the time humans. Sunburn almost started an interstellar war.